Notice anything? So not smooth. So look at what is finally back. So what happened? Well, let's just say that buying a used trailer is a learning experience, to say the least. So I'm going to show you a few of the things that I got caught on, some of the things to keep your eyes open for, with, how not to get yourself financially kicked in the pocketbook, or hopefully not stranded on the side of the road. Luckily, we didn't get that, but we did have some minor inconveniences that, I'll get into that. And I'll show you what it was that actually kept my trailer for 3.5 months needlessly, because I got forgotten about. This is you've decided what kind of trailer you want, how to make it the best experience that you can. You have to have an idea first of what you want, what's going to suit you, what things do you want, what features do you want. Do you want air conditioning? Do you want heat? Do you want a fridge? Do you want a sink? Once you've got all that in mind, car just made a really weird noise. Things to look out for to prevent heartache and hopefully road ache too. Stay tuned. I'm Chris, and this is Adventure Dogs. You want to check your hitch receiver, all that fun stuff. Is it covered in rust? Any welds? Are the welds solid? Your tongue jack, how sturdy is it? Like, if you're only going to be in paved campgrounds, it doesn't really need to be that robust. If you're going to be dragging it all over hell's half acres, although, I mean, we all know that you're not supposed to be towing with this, but it's great to be able to adjust it, especially when, you got to balance stuff out. This one's all pretty good. This is the original one. If it comes with any extra attachments, I didn't factor this. So when I raise or lower, if I'm not careful, pretty self-correcting mistake to jam it off of this. And if it comes with a lock, make sure you have the lock keys. I did get that, but I could see that would being a problem. What conditions your plug in? Is it going to need a little bit of tender loving care with some dielectric grease or something like that? If it comes with a tongue box, make sure it works. Mine did at first. This one works well. This one does not. Check all your seals, make sure they're intact. Find out if the locks have different keys or not, and how they work. Because it's problematic when you don't have all the keys and you can't lock all your locks. Remember this spot? Oh, it's so much lower without the mattress. This is weird. You'll want to keep an eye open for signs of water damage, especially around the top seams, like the corners. But that can be misleading. We'll get to that later. When you're checking over the wheels, don't just check the tires. Check your rim, jack it up a little bit, check your bearings, see if you need anything with those. Do they have bearing buddies, which help to prolong the time between you have to replace them, because inevitably you will have to replace them. Keep them greased up. How big a tire do you have? Can you make it bigger? It's not all about size, I know. Bigger trailers mean you can go faster speeds. Means that they're going to be a little bit more robust, also a little bit more helpful on the off-roading. Check the rim, if there's any heavy-duty damage to the rim. Yeah, rims are easy to replace. It costs a little bit of money, so hopefully you don't have to dish out. But if there's a big ding in the rim, might mean that they hit something hard, which might affect the undercarriage. Speaking of undercarriage, hi. We're up underneath the undercarriage. You might say, well, I don't know what the underside of a trailer looks like, but you know what? You kind of don't have to. You want to keep an eye open for things that are symmetrical. So does one side have something the other side doesn't? Don't be afraid to ask questions about that, especially if there's a previous owner or you're at a dealership. Sharp edges. Typically, you won't see like something that looks broken. If it looks broken, odds are there's a good reason for it. It's also good to know where your spare is. How are you able to remove it? Is it something that you're physically able to do? Is it difficult? Does it require you climbing underneath your trailer to get your spare? That's something to know before you need to know it. One moment, please. La, 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 la. Now here we are in the galley. So when I talked about water damage, you always kind of expect it to have that look of, you know, like you do with drywall, where it's got the long crinkle trails down the wall. And when I bought the trailer, I didn't notice. I did notice. I noticed there was a little bit of water damage up in here. You can see it there. So I asked the kid what that water damage was from, and he told me that they had plants growing there. And to me that made sense. It made a lot of sense because I didn't see any water damage up here. I didn't see any up in the seam. And there was plant material of a kind of plant that is now legal in Canada. But it turns out that there was actually water coming in the hinge and it was leaking into here. But because I hadn't seen the trail, the plant explanation made a ton of sense. So that was when I learned about the nipple on the hinge. You put a little bit of caulking on there and it keeps water from getting into the hinge. Well, that was gone. I would recommend any trailer that you get have stabilizers, and make sure you know how they work. And this is the part where I'm going to embarrass myself by totally forgetting how they work. You extend them, and then you raise the tongue up a little bit, just to kind of put a little bit of pressure on them. But make sure that you remember to lower the tongue down before you try and close these back up, because otherwise you freak out because you're at a national park and you think that you can't tow your trailer out because you've forgotten that you raised it up. And then you end up with an extra bottle of WD-40 that you really didn't need. And now, the big problem. Right here on both sides, there was a small gap, literally about that big. And it would let dirt and dust get into the galley. I actually don't feel bad about missing it because I had to point it out to everyone else. No one else noticed it. And then I also realized just recently, that underneath here, there's a big gap. So it's like the gasket doesn't quite close properly. So that is also another reason why I'm getting dust, especially that fine prairie dust that was covering everything. Let me tell you, you don't know fun until you've had to clean up your entire galley. Oh, and into the sleeping area because, you know, there was dust everywhere. So I'm gonna have to get me a gasket of some kind or some kind of insulation or padding or something that's gonna close that gap. It's not really bad, so I'm not too terribly put out by it, but it's a pain in the rump region. There we have it. My trailer's back, so we'll be able to actually do some stuff with that. Very down and dirty, very quick look over, tips for looking over, learn from my mistakes, okay? Like, this has been quite the learning process, and that's part of the fun, right? So check for rust. How bad is it? If it's bad at all. I mean, hey, maybe if you got brand new, hopefully you don't have anything to worry about. But even if it's brand new, check out the trailer. I was just talking to a friend who said they bought a brand new trailer and it had a crack in the frame. Well, that's a bit of a problem. Check the wheels, check the undercarriage. You can write their own dirty jokes. Ask questions, check for water damage, and maybe question if you actually believe it. Look for those little tiny things. Thanks for watching, I really appreciate it. I know I say it with every video, and that's because it's true. You know, you take your time out of the day to watch me crawl underneath a trailer. That's a new one. Let everyone know your tips and trips, tips and tricks. Holy, at some point I'm gonna get it right. At some point. Let me know your tips and tricks below. We'll see you out there. Safe travels.